Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, India's wrestling Olympic gold dream dashed. Vinesh Phogat disqualified ahead of the 50 kg final bout for being 100 grams overweight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi asked the Indian Olympic Association to launch a strong protest. India's finance minister tells Parliament the tax proposal on real estate is being amended. Property owners will have an option to pay long-term tax under both the old and the new systems. Bangladesh Army Chief says interim government is likely to be sworn in by Thursday. He expresses confidence that Muhammad Yunus will take the country towards democracy.
Yes, I'm looking forward to going back home and see what's happening there and how we can organize ourselves to get out of the trouble that we are in.
Shops boarded up in London, thousands of police on alert over the likelihood of more riots in UK cities. PM Starmer says over 400 have been arrested. And Iran's President Pezeshkian, in a call with his French counterpart Macron, says if the US and the West want to prevent war, they must get Israel to accept a ceasefire in Gaza. First up, let's get you all the latest from the Paris Olympic Games. It was heartbreak for India. Wrestler Vinesh Phogat was disqualified ahead of her final bout against USA's Sarah Ann Hildebrand on Wednesday. She had made history by becoming the first Indian woman to reach the final of a wrestling event in the Olympic Games. Though Vinesh was assured of a silver, the cruel twist of fate meant that she will not win any medal at all at the Paris Games. The reason? She was 100 grams overweight.
India's ace grappler Vinesh Phogat was competing in the 50 kg freestyle wrestling category. She was found 100 grams over the 50 kg weight limit for her event. At Paris 2024, each weight category is organized over 2 competition days. The medical control and weigh-in for each category takes place in the morning of the first competition day. On the second competition day, wrestlers who have qualified for the finals and repertoire are weighed in again. Vinesh Phogat was eligible for competition on the opening day, but weighed just over 50 kgs on Thursday morning. According to wrestling rules, if a wrestler fails the weigh-in on either day of the competition, they are eliminated from the event. India's Chief Medical Officer at the Paris Olympics, Dr. Pardiwala, explained what went into Vinesh Phogat's weight cut efforts.
In the morning, we found that despite all of our efforts, her weight was 100 grams over her 50 kilogram weight category, and hence she was disqualified. We had tried all possible drastic measures throughout the night, including cutting off her hair, shortening her clothes, and despite all of this, we could not make that 50 kg weight category.
President Draupadi Murmu and Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar expressed strong support and admiration for Vinesh Phogat, who was disqualified at the Paris Olympics. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Indian Olympic Association President P.T. Usha and asked her to lodge a strong protest with the United World Wrestling and to take necessary action. India's Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia informed the Parliament that the government provided every facility to her, including personal staff for the Olympics.
भारत सरकार ने विनेश फोगाट की उनकी आवश्यकता के अनुसार हर संभव सहायता प्रदान की है। उनके लिए पर्सनल स्टाफ भी नियुक्त किए गए हैं जो अपने क्षेत्र के विशेषज्ञ हैं। उनके साथ हंगरी के विख्यात कोच ओलेर अकोस और फिजियो अश्विनी पाटिल हमेशा रहते हैं। इनको ओलंपिक के लिए इनके अतिरिक्त व्यक्तिगत सहायक स्टाफ जैसे विभिन्न स्पारिंग पार्टनर्स, स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ कंडीशनिंग विशेषज्ञ के लिए वित्तीय सहायता प्रदान की गई।
The president of the Indian Olympic Association, P.T. Usha, met Vinesh at the Olympic Village Polyclinic and assured her of all help. For the 2020 Tokyo Olympic cycle, $137,000 was spent, while for the 2024 Paris Olympic cycle, around $85,000 was spent. Vinesh's disqualification on the brink of a gold or a silver in the Olympics has left India in shock. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, senior sports journalist Malay Neerav now joins us to talk more about it. Malay, Neerav, I'm not sure if Vinesh and all those supporting her, the entire nation, have been able to process this crushing disappointment yet. Now, how could something like this happen in the first place?
Very sad, unfortunate, and also heartbreaking, no doubt about that. But see, I guess that somebody will have to take the responsibility. You cannot blame the athlete squarely and only for this, because you have a support staff, you have a coach, you have all kinds of medical facilities there. They're keeping an eye on your weight all the time. So if there is a minor discrepancy, and I have covered many Olympics, and this is not something which happens only with Vinesh or somebody who has this tendency to cross the weight mark. Every boxer, weightlifter, and wrestler before the bout tries to lose some weight by doing exercise so that the water deposition in the body, if at all, if it is there, it comes out by sweating, by cycling, by doing all kinds of physical activities. Now, here there was a girl who was doing so well, started with defeating the world champion, and then she is moving to the final round, and then you realize that she is above weight and she's crossed. And it was likely to happen because if you are going into 3 bouts, one after another, you will have to drink some fluid, a liquid intake will be there for you not to get dehydrated. And that is what happened on Tuesday. So on Wednesday morning, when they were preparing, she could have taken care of, she could have been taken care of by others besides her. She tried her level best, but there was some problem that she could not meet that mark, and that is very unfortunate. That is an avoidable situation. I've seen athletes losing 3, 4, 5 kgs, but the problem with women is that they do not sweat as much as men.
Right.
This is also something which is in the body physique of the athletes, and therefore we have to take extra care and extra caution. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. Luck was not on his side.
Yes, Malay, just stay with us because I'm also joined by my colleague from Paris covering the Olympics there, Narayan, saying, Narayan, just tell us this, this complaint or the issue that has been raised with the World Wrestling body, the UWW, United World Wrestling. Do you think it has any sort of, possibility of having any kind of purchase with them?
Gautam, if you talk about the rules, they are clearly mentioned that the world body will definitely adhere to the rules. There is no, we can say, the concession on that matter. The rule clearly says that before you come to the fight, there will be a weighing process will take place, and at that time you should be in your weight category. And after that, the rules has been changed. Initially, in the past, these were not the rules, but now the rules are different. And next day, after you are, if you enter the repechage round or you come to the final, definitely you should be in your weight category. But we know that after we can 3 fights on Tuesday, first against the world champion, she was an unbeaten streak of 82 matches. Vinesh defeated that Japanese wrestler, and then in the quarterfinals, then in the semifinals. So already there, they will be there, play the next round. There should be appropriate amount of intake of the food or the food to be there so that she can fight with her opponent. But after semifinals, the next day we saw that her weight was around 52.5 kg, but gaining around 2.5 kg in that period of time. And our doctor team under the guidance of the Dimshop Pradiwala, they tried everything so that she could be at the optimal weight level of the 50 kg category. But whatever they can do under their reach, but they can't risk the life of our wrestler. So that in that case, it was difficult for any person to bring down 2 kg of weight within a span of 12 hours, 14 hours. So that's why it was, we can say that it happened. And when we talked to the WFI President, Wrestling Federation of India, President Sanjay Singh, so he said that the responsibility should go to the coaches, support staff, the nutritionists, what intake she has taken, so that she was not able to just recover to her previous weight. So all in all, rules are clear. There is no concession for anyone. In the past also such things happened, and the wrestlers, the boxers, the athletes were disqualified. So in that scenario, I didn't think there is any breather for the Indian wrestling.
Okay, I should have probably asked you this first, but how is Vinesh doing now? How's the Indian camp? Because that is also a bit of a concern considering the kind of heartbreak everyone has gone through.
We can say that she was a little bit dehydrated because they were trying to bring her weight down to the 50 kg category. So she didn't took anything in the night, no food, no water. So they tried everything from sauna, bath to everything so that she can be there in the optimal weight level. But despite of all the, we can say, hard work of our doctors by Vinesh, still she was 100 grams above of the weight category. So now she is fine. She was there in the polyclinic in the Games Village. She was treated by the doctors, and now she was fine. The IOA president PT Usha was there. Shakti Mission Gagan Narang was there, and team of doctors was there to monitor her. But health-wise, she is okay. But we can say that a missed opportunity for the Indian wrestling. She was there to fight for the gold medal. The kind of form she gained after beating the Olympic champion and the 5-time world champion. She thrashed her opponent in the next round in the quarters and semis. So the whole country, more than 1 billion people were hoping a gold medal from Vinesh. But we know that rules are rules. Definitely we have to adhere to the rules. And this didn't happen. So that's why the Vinesh qualified. But it's a heartbreak for the Indian wrestling, for
Certainly.
the 1 billion people of India.
Certainly, Narayan. Thank you for joining us from Paris. Malay, if I could come back to you, just also help us understand how often does it happen that something like this happens, that a sports person where weight is a very crucial parameter comes up over or under weight in before these crucial bouts. I don't know if it's ever happened previously in the Olympics, but in general there are worlds happening all over the place, Asian contests happening as well.
Well, it does happen. It's not that it has happened for the first time. It does happen sometimes when you are at the margin, just about trying to keep it under control to that level where if you cross it, then you are not eligible.
And there's just an upper limit. If you cross it by even a gram, you can be ruled out?
Yes. These are the new rules which have been now implemented, that you can't cross it. So we cannot blame them for having stopped her from the bout. See, rules are rules, and they cannot be flouted, and they cannot be diluted for individuals. What I am saying is there are two crucial questions here. One is, why was she forced to change from 53 kgs to 50 kgs? And the girl who was there in the 53 kgs category, Antim Bangal, who was the substitute for this girl, Bogart, now she lost her bout in the very first round. And while you are trying to lose weight, don't forget that the weight of the body is not only something which can be sweated out. See, it contains muscle mass, it contains bones, and therefore the average weight of Vinesh here has varied between 53 and 56 in the past. Now she has been forced to participate in the 50 kg category. So she was trying to bring it down, and to some extent she was successful. And then came a point where she could not maintain it because, as I told you, that when you are going through 3 bouts in a day and you are trying to lose weight and therefore you don't drink enough water, while you are there in the bout, nobody will allow you to die or faint there. So you are given some liquid, some water to drink. Now that increases the weight of the body.
Yes.
And that weight has to be brought down. Now, while all this was going on, and everybody knew that there were 3 bouts scheduled for that day, the entire camp knew it, they could have prepared her better.
Certainly, I mean, that will remain a concern, and maybe we'll get some answers to this with the time, perhaps. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Malay Neerav. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Pope Francis' weekly general audience at the Vatican is interrupted by protesters shouting slogans and holding up signs against bullfighting. Thailand's Constitutional Court on Wednesday ordered the dissolution of the anti-establishment opposition party move forward. And a vortex of fire burning through California's forests in an area twice the size of the city of Los Angeles.
The one common theme between all major cities across the world is hope and the promise of new opportunities and possibilities that gravitates people towards them.
The reason why we advocate green transformations is because you can retain the building and you can actually modify.
There's a lot that happens when you extract sand beyond sustainable limits. It's going to change your course of your river, it's going to widen the channel, it's going to damage, and we are paying a big price.
We have 2 water reservoirs on 84 acres of land. During periods when the river water is non-saline, we store water in these reservoirs. Throughout the year, we distribute this water to residents.
Tiny houses are in vogue. Less is more. Many also assume tiny homes are more eco-friendly.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, as the excitement for the Paris Olympic Games continues unabated, we're seeing a flurry of international updates and developments. Here's an in-depth look at the latest key developments that are shaping the lead up to the finale of the Games.
Gabby Thomas, the American sprinter, achieved her long-awaited goal of securing a global title by delivering an impressive performance in the Olympic 200 meters final on Tuesday. In control of the final throughout the race, Thomas came home in 21.83 seconds. The 27-year-old athlete clinched the gold medal, preventing Julian Alfred from completing a sprint double and relegating her to the silver medal position. Thomas had previously won bronze in Tokyo and silver at the previous year's World Championships. Bahrain's Winfred Yavi won the Women's Olympic 3,000-meter steeplechase gold medal, dethroning Uganda's Perut Chemutai and pushing her to silver. Chemutai was in shock after 24-year-old Yavi stole the finish to add the Olympic title to last year's World Championship, setting an Olympic record time of 8 minutes 52.76 seconds. American Cole Hauker delivered one of the biggest all-time Olympic shocks when he won the 1,500 meters gold with a stunning finish to blast past British world champion Josh Kerr as defending champion Jacob Ingebrigtsen faded to 4th on Tuesday. The race, anticipated as a duel between Ingebrigtsen and Kerr, saw the Norwegian set a fast pace leading into the last 200 meters. Arisa True delivered a technical masterpiece in her final run at the Paris Games on Tuesday to grab gold in women's park as the 14-year-old became the first Australian woman to win an Olympic skateboarding medal. True saved her best performance for last, delivering a daring and precise routine on her third and final run, earning an impressive score of 93.18 on a sun-drenched day at La Concorde. China's Guan Hongchan won the women's 10-meter platform event, securing her country's 5th diving gold medal at the Paris Olympics. The 17-year-old showcased perfection on her first dive, earning a perfect score from all judges. Kuan successfully defended her Tokyo title with a score of 425.60 points, while her teammate Chen Yuji claimed the silver medal once again. Thea Lafond celebrated a historic achievement for Dominica over the weekend by winning gold in the triple jump, securing the country's first ever Olympic medal. With a distance of 15.02 meters, the 30-year-old athlete clinched gold in the women's triple jump, earning Dominica its first ever Olympic gold medal. Sports Desk, DD India.
The United Kingdom is bracing for another night of violence as far-right mobs have planned rallies at around 100 places and have issued another hit list. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has warned that rioters will meet the full force of the law. More in this report.
The UK is on the edge as it braces for more violence amid rumours on social media of even more far-right riots over the coming days. Immigration lawyers and refugee support groups are closing their doors after messages called for protests outside their offices on Wednesday. Thousands of British police officers are bracing up for more violence on the United Kingdom's streets.
We're doing everything we can to ensure that where a police response is needed, it's in place. Where support is needed for particular places, that is in space. Obviously, it's a difficult situation with disorder going on in a number of different places at the same time.
The Crown Prosecution Service said around 100 people have been charged in connection with the violence. Britain has been gripped by an escalating wave of violence that erupted early last week when 3 young girls were killed in a knife attack in Southport, northwest England. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, a British man was jailed for 3 years for violent disorder during anti-immigrants riots last week. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, a former chief prosecutor who's facing his first crisis since winning a July 4 election, has warned rioters they will face lengthy jail terms.
I held my second COBRA meeting today to coordinate the response and to get the assurance that I want and need that we do have adequate police in place, that we are able to cope with this disorder. But the message has to go to those who are involving themselves in this disorder, which is you're wrong.
In various towns and cities, groups of a few hundred rioters clashed with police and smashed windows of hotels housing asylum seekers from Africa and the West Asia, chanting, "Get them out." It was a reference to those arriving in Britain in small dinghies. A British scholar said this is the worst rioting in United Kingdom in 13 years, and it sheds light on the failure of country's political system to find long-term solutions to fundamental problems. The police have said the attack was not terrorism related and that the suspect was born in Britain. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports for DD India.
And for more, let's go across to DD India's Ollie Barrett joining us from London. Hi Ollie, it's been over a week since the Southport stabbings. Rioters are being arrested and jailed swiftly. Is the action against those involved in the violent disorder having the desired effect where you are in West London?
Well, we will find out, I think, Gautam, in the hours to come, because at sites like this one where I am, up and down the country, there is the threat of potential violence in the hours ahead. Where I am, this is a potential disorder site for later because it's been identified on a list that's being shared online among some suspected members of the far right as a potential target. There is an immigration legal services company inside this building. That's why it's on that list, and similar organisations and charities linked to asylum are on the list elsewhere in the UK. In the coming hours, therefore, we may at some of these locations see demonstrations, counter-demonstrations and potential for disorder. Here in Brentford in West London, where I am, the local police say they are aware of what they call plans for disorder, and they are urging calm, but also telling local people that they have resources to deal with whatever unfolds. The other thing that's happening here locally is that businesses are closing early, people are going home early from work just to make sure that they are out of the way of any disorder that does occur. So that idea of Keir Starmer's, that hope of the Prime Minister, that some of these strong sentences now being handed out to people who've been taking part in rioting will act as a deterrent, as I say, we will see in the coming hours, but then again over the days to come.
All right, Ali. Let's hope that better sense prevails among people who have been protesting. There is a way to protest, and peaceful protests are allowed in any part of the country. It's a democracy after all, but we'll have to wait and see what happens next. Thanks for joining us. As the date for the US presidential election nears, the poll campaign gains pace after Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris selected Tim Walz as her running mate on Tuesday. The poll environment has got further charged. Former President Barack Obama endorsed him as well, but Republican Party's VP hopeful J.D. Vance attacked Kamala Harris for this choice. Kamala Harris will be campaigning alongside her new running mate Tim Walz on Wednesday, holding events in battleground states Wisconsin and Michigan.
Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and her newly selected vice presidential running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz campaigned for the first time together on Tuesday in Philadelphia as they kicked off a multi-day tour of battleground states aimed at introducing Walz on the national stage. Harris announced her choice of Walz on Tuesday, opting for a vice presidential running mate with executive experience, military service, and a track record of winning over rural and white voters who have gravitated to Trump over the years.
A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama endorsed the candidature of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as vice president and congratulated him. However, the Democratic Party's decision to select the VP candidate has not gone down well with the Republicans. The party's vice presidential hopeful, Senator J.D. Vance, said that Harris was radical in picking Walz as running mate.
How radical this person who listened to the and select nominee. This guy proposed manufacturing jobs in China, who wants to make the people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does.
Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz also attacked his Republican rival in his first speech in Philadelphia and expressed his eagerness to debate with J.D. Vance.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and, yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Walz grew up in a small town in Nebraska. He was a teacher, coach, and union member at a high school before entering politics. He successfully ran for governor in 2018 and was re-elected in 2022. Walz is in sync with Kamala on key issues like same-sex marriage and abortion rights. Both Harris and Trump will try to resonate with voters, considering different generational, racial, and occupational factors as they travel and campaign in each region. Raghav Kumar Jha's report, DD India.
On Fox and Friends, Donald Trump has called Walz a shocking pick, saying that he's smarter version of her, indicating Harris. Now, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has stressed that they will not stay quiet over aggression as tensions continue to rise. In a phone conversation with French counterpart, Pezeshkian said that if Western countries are truly seeking to prevent war in the region, then they must force Israel to accept a ceasefire. Meanwhile, an emergency meeting of the opposition of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that's the OIC, was held on Wednesday in Saudi Arabia as Iran's request to discuss the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Now, fears of an Iranian attack on Israel keep tensions high in West Asia. The region has been on edge since the recent assassinations of terrorist leaders in Beirut and Tehran. More in this report.
West Asia is bracing up for another wave of attacks by Iran and its allies after last week's killing of members of terrorist group Hamas and Hezbollah. The Israeli military has issued new evacuation orders for an area in northern Gaza, one of the first to be hit in the October 7 conflict, as more rockets were launched. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has urged Israelis to stay calm amid threat of attacks. In retaliation, Israeli tanks shelled 2 of Gaza's refugee camps, accusing Hamas of using them as a shelter. After 2 days of lengthy negotiations in Doha, Hamas has named Yahya Sinwar as its new overall chief, replacing Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Tehran last week. Believed to be the mastermind of the October 7 attacks, Sinwar has not made a public appearance since, but continues to direct military operations along with other commanders. The White House has warned Israel and Iran about the escalating conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that talks to achieve a ceasefire and hostage deal in the Gaza conflict have reached their final stage.
We continue to work intensely to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East and to prevent the spread of conflict. Over the past few days, we've been in constant contact with partners in the region and well beyond. In those conversations, we've heard a clear consensus. No one should escalate this conflict. We've been engaged in intense diplomacy with allies and partners, communicating that message directly to Iran. We communicated that message directly to Israel.
Meanwhile, tensions near the Lebanon border continues to rise as Hezbollah fired a series of drones into Israel, striking several areas and triggering air raid sirens. In response, the Israeli Air Force struck 2 Hezbollah facilities in southern Lebanon. The after effects of the conflict were seen at the Beirut International Airport too, as several nations have urged their citizens to leave Lebanon and avoid traveling to the country. Over 10,000 UN peacekeepers are currently in Lebanon to maintain peace and prevent war from breaking out. Tripti Tripathi reporting for DD India.
And DD India's Sarah Coates is in Tel Aviv, getting us more on the situation on the ground.
Well, certainly the situation on the ground just continues to escalate. Israel striking a number of what it is calling Hezbollah facilities over the past few hours, confirming that it has killed another senior Hezbollah commander. Now, red alert sirens have been ringing out in these northern Israeli communities, as well as people are being told to stay very, very close to shelter. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he has visited a number of army bases over the past few hours. He is urging Israelis to stay calm and composed, saying we're prepared for both defence and offence. We're striking our enemies and also determined to defend ourselves. Now, we've also heard from the Defence Minister Yoav Gallant. He is warning that Lebanon will pay a very high price in a war that they cannot imagine. So certainly a lot of tension here on the ground as Israelis really anticipate this promised response from Iran in retaliation to the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. He was the head of Hamas's Politburo, but he was assassinated last week in Tehran. Now, these intensive diplomatic efforts are continuing. We've heard from the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He told reporters that the U.S. has told both Israel and Iran that there's consensus in the Middle East that this current conflict must escalate. Now, in terms of people coming and going out of Israel, we can confirm that many flights have been cancelled, with Delta the latest to say it will not be flying for the rest of this month. Now, Canada is also beginning an evacuation process of its citizens. These would be children under the age of 16 who would be accompanied by a parent. Reporting from Tel Aviv, I'm Sarah Coates for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's President Draupadi Murmu is in New Zealand's Auckland now as part of her three-nation tour. And it's a day dedicated to India's weavers as the nation celebrates Handloom Day. Also, India's Kaziranga National Park forest guards get 20 new inflatable rubber boats with outboard motors to check poaching in the Rhino Reserve. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Bangladesh President Mohammad Shahabuddin has appointed Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus as interim government head following Prime Minister Hasina's resignation and flight to India. Yunus, who urged calm and rapid elections, is coming back from Paris and also faces legal issues in his country. The army chief is assured that all sections of society will support the head of the interim government. DD India's Syed Absarul Hassan puts things into perspective.
Bangladesh President Mohammad Shahabuddin has appointed Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus as head of the interim government after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned on Monday and left the country following a violent crackdown on a student-led uprising. Yunus, who was recommended by student leaders, stated that the remaining members need to be finalized soon to overcome the current crisis and pave way for elections. Student leaders have demanded that elections be held within 3 months. While congratulating students for leading the movement, Nobel laureate urged the countrymen to remain calm and make the best use of this new victory, which he termed the second Liberation Day in the history of Bangladesh. Yunus was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on microfinancing. Yunus, who was in Paris for treatment, has left for Bangladesh. He is facing several cases in the country. A court in Bangladesh on Wednesday overturned his conviction in a case related to labour law violations, for which he had been sentenced to 6 months in jail. He was released on bail.
Just I'm looking forward to going back home and see what's happening there and how we can organize ourselves to get out of the trouble that we're in.
Bangladesh Army Chief General Waqar-uz-Zama, in a statement on Wednesday, said full interim government will be sworn in by Thursday. He mentioned that the army is working on restoring the country's police forces. He also assured that interim government headed by Yunus will receive full support and assistance from all sections. A day after freed from house arrest, Bangladeshi opposition leader Khaleda Zia made a virtual speech at Dhaka rally on Wednesday. She vowed to make the country prosperous again.
This victory has brought new opportunities for us. The corruption that has been ongoing in the country for so many days was ignored by the government. Amid all this, we must make Bangladesh prosperous again.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that United States has been watching the situation very closely and that any decisions made by the interim government must respect democratic principles, uphold the rule of law, and reflect the will of the people.
That any decisions that the interim government makes need to respect democratic principles, need to uphold the rule of law, reflect the will of the people.
After the chaos on Monday, normalcy is now slowly returning as garment factories reopened on Wednesday, hoping to swiftly resume full operations after production was disrupted by violent protests. Syed Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
Let me now take you across to DD India's Naval Singh Parmar, who has been tracking all the developments very closely in Bangladesh. Good evening to you, Naval. What is the state of affairs in Bangladesh right now?
In Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh, yesterday morning, 6 p.m., curfew lifted. Then after traffic were welcomed by the army chief, and he asked countrymen to start your routine lives normally. But there were apprehension among the people in the first half of the yesterday, and there were very less traffic on the streets and roads of Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh. But yesterday, from yesterday evening, situation is coming under control. Not it is a normal, but it is now control. And there are many incidents which are being reported from the different parts of the Bangladesh. That there are some incidents of violence, vandalization that's happening against the party worker of Israel ruling party, party activists and their leaders. And second thing, there were an absence of police in last 2.5 days on the street clubs.
We seem to have lost that link with Naval Singh Parmar. We'll try and reconnect as and when it's possible. For the moment, let me now bring in our guest, our expert guest on the subject. Veena Sikri is now joining us, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Good evening to you, Ms. Sikri. What do you make of what's been happening in Bangladesh and which way are things headed with now Muhammad Yunus set to lead the interim government swearing in supposed to take place tomorrow in the evening?
Yes, I think in my view, the situation in Bangladesh is a source of worry because one doesn't know how this so-called transfer of power is taking place. In a constitutional democracy, the USP is a peaceful transfer of power, peaceful change. But here it has happened through what has been described as a student reform movement for quota reform, but actually that student quota reform was something supported by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and she was the one who abolished the quotas for the students. So it was completely peaceful in Dhaka right till the 15th of July because even though the High Court has overturned the decision of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she appealed to the Supreme Court, and some of the student groups actually supported her in that appeal. But of course, with some violence taking place, I think the Jamaat-e-Islami student wing, Islami Chhatra Shibir, and the BNP student wing, they all got into the act, and they've completely hijacked what was a very peaceful student protest and have taken over the situation. And that is what has forced Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign and leave the country. Now, of course, you are right that Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus, Nobel laureate, and he's been asked to head the interim government. But I do not know what is the sense of unity and what is the sense of support that is across, because we saw today in Bangladesh the speech by Begum Khaleda Zia, the NP leader. But the thought was that Begum Khaleda Zia's son, who has been in exile in UK for 50 years, would also be there, or at least would be allowed to address the conference, but that did not happen. So there is this kind of strange working behind the scenes that is going on there. It's very strange working behind the scenes that is going on there. And one doesn't know who will be really the party in control. While the Jamaat-e-Islami is clearly in control at this point in time, they are making a lot of new appointments in the army and in the police and all across in other sectors. So again, this is without any authority, this is without any kind of the constitutional mechanisms that are there in any democracy. So this is taking place on its own. Now, what will be the impact down the line? And outside Dhaka, even though the reports that we have seen show a return to normalcy in Dhaka, outside Dhaka there's an enormous amount of violence. The Hindu minorities are being attacked indiscriminately. Many have been lynched and killed and hung up in the most cruel manner imaginable.
Yes, we've not put out those images. We've sort of self-censored us because they're very disturbing, could be inflammatory as well, but they're most disturbing. But if we talk about the way forward, what is the fact that you have Muhammad Yunus accepting the job that was essentially given to him by the students in a way, and that's been accepted by the army and the president in consultation with others? We don't know who they all are, but what does that tell us, which way are things headed?
Well, I must say about Professor Muhammad Yunus, I do know him. He's a very fine person. He has, even inaugurated my South Asia Women's Network many years ago. But Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus tried this exact post 15 years ago in 2007 and 8. Actually, at that time, there was an army-backed caretaker government, and the effort was to make him the head of the interim government at that time. But it didn't work because he wanted to start a political party. There was no resistance from the grass level, and so he gave up on politics. But now he's back again. So who has he been appointed by? Yes, you're saying it's the students, but the discussion all across is that he has the support of the Western governments. And there is the discussion is the role of China in this. The Jamaat-e-Islami, the connectivity with Pakistan. We saw the statement made by the government of Pakistan today. So I think getting behind what is happening is a matter of some importance, because there is also discussion in Bangladesh today that, yes, you talked about, what was the last election like? But the discussion in Bangladesh is, when will the next election take place? After 3 years or after 6 years? So I do not know to what extent you're going to have a return to full democracy in Bangladesh.
Will we have a clearer picture if we get to see who all are sworn in along with Muhammad Yunus as well tomorrow in the evening?
Well, at the moment, the swearing in tomorrow evening, I think, will be just Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus, because he's the head of the interim government. So far, there is no agreement or no agreement which has been conveyed to the outside world about who the other members of the interim government are going to be. And although there is a suspected list already ready, created by the Jamaat-e-Islami, there is some talk that there will be some discussion with Professor Muhammad Yunus once he is back in Dhaka. So we do not know yet at all about the composition of the interim government and what it will, what will the responsibilities be, who will the people be in charge of the various areas of work. So I think that this is all a matter to be seen yet, and I think there is some return to normalcy in the factories around Dhaka, but outside, again, as I would say, there is so much chaos. The first-hand report we're getting about the chaos outside Dhaka, I don't know how long that will take, and when it does happen, what will there be? Because you're having the police is not present at all. The police is not present. They are on some kind of strike. Even at the border with India, we do not know how much of it the BJP is guarding, how much of it is now unguarded. So there is worry there about, India is very worried about people trying to come in, and there's a 200-meter curfew being observed all along the Indian border on the Indian side. So there are a lot of elements of uncertainty, and of course the whole issue of trade with India, the whole issue of how will that resume, the supply lines, the Indian Cultural Center in Dhaka has been completely vandalized and burned. So one worries about who has done all this. Who has done all this? I mean, the fact that you bring in you break down the statue of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Muhammad Yunus himself calling it a second liberation. So second liberation from what? Second liberation from the first liberation war. So, there are a lot of uncertainties and, questions about the directions and the respect for history in the past of the creation of Bangladesh. And let's say you've seen the visuals of all the destruction of the Indian Cultural Center. It's been reduced to a complete shambles. Now,
yes.
Who did this? Who did this? And there's been an evacuation of the Indian High Commission. All non-resident staff has been sent back.
Well, we'll perhaps have to wait for order to first return to be able to figure out an answer to these questions and see if anyone is ever held accountable for all that has gone on these past few days. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Veena Sikri, because India's position remains unchanged. It's highly concerned about what's happening till a more certain picture emerges. That hasn't really changed from yesterday. Thank you. Now, the lower house of India's parliament, the Lok Sabha, on Wednesday passed the Finance Bill 2024 after the central government relaxed the freshly introduced new capital gains tax on real estate, allowing taxpayers an option to switch to a new lower tax rate or stay with the old regime that had higher rate with indexation benefit. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, in a reply to the Finance Bill, said the new tax regime is simpler and lesser in rate. She also said that the approach to taxation has been to simplify it and give flexibility to taxpayers while ensuring transparency.
The new tax regime which we brought in is simpler, lesser in rates. It also gives a flexibility to the taxpayer to see where he wants to put his money in the absence of exemptions which is available in the old regime. The old regime has not been dissolved, it is still on. So as an alternative to the new tax regime, it still offers all the benefits of various deductions, such as interest on home loan, etc. So that is still available for people to benefit from. Individuals without business income can choose between this regime and the other, and if they want to revert back also, they can revert back. So there is a choice provided for the taxpayer, he can choose.
Now let's take a look at some of the key proposals of the amended finance bill. The fiscal deficit target has been lowered to 4.9% of GDP from 5.1% on the back of a surplus transfer from the central bank and robust tax revenues. The government intends to bring fiscal deficit below 4.5% of GDP by financial year 25-26. The central government has kept capital expenditure outlay at 11.11 lakh crore rupees for 2024-25. Host of tweaks in basic customs duty for various products that are critical for manufacturing, for the exemption of customs duties of 25 critical minerals, amendments in long-term capital gains and property transactions, 12.5% LTCG rate without indexation, short-term capital gains on specified financial assets to attract a tax of 20% instead of 15% from the 23rd of July this year, increase limit of exemption of capital gains on certain listed financial assets from 1 lakh rupees to 1.25 lakh rupees per year, TDS rate reduced from 5 to 2% for various payments, deduction on family pension for pensioners enhanced from 15,000 to 30,000 rupees. Now, India's Executive Director at the IMF, Krishnamurthy Subramaniam, has launched his book in Delhi today titled India at 100 in the presence of Dr. Arvind Panagaria, the chairman of the 16th Finance Commission of India. The book talks about the future of Indian economics and India's ambitious goal to become a developed economy by 2047. The author and the guests talked about the opportunities and challenges India faces to become a $55 trillion economy in the next 25 years.
Look at the last 20 years. If I take 2003-04 to 2023-24, in current dollars, India has grown 10%. Okay, so this is in nominal dollars, so to say, current dollars. So even if, now remember that this is a 20-year period which has been characterized by at least two major crises. You had the global financial crisis in 2008, and then you had the COVID crisis in 2020-21. In spite of that, people don't realize this, but in nominal dollars, India has grown over these 2 decades at 10%. Even making that kind of assumption of 10% growth over the next 23, about 23 years, going to 2047, you get to about $31-32 trillion in current dollars. So,
if we take, let's say, 8% growth in real terms, and, hopefully during some of the conversation, I can also get into some of the drivers, why is it that I think, India can indeed grow at 8%. But let's just sort of understand the calculation first. 8% growth in real terms and inflation at 5%. So 8 plus 5, that's basically nominal terms, nominal rupee terms, that's 13%. And assume 1% depreciation of the currency of rupee. So, at 12% rate of growth, 12 times 6 is 72. So GDP doubles every 6 years. Over a 24-year period from 2023 to 2047, then there are going to be 4 doublings. 24 divided by 6 is 4. So I think the work that India has to do is on growing at 8%. That's a critical, because over a 20-25-year period, fundamentals will start showing up. And this is where I want to illuminate a little bit more.
Now, India's President Draupadi Murmu has arrived at Auckland today on a 3-day visit to New Zealand, the second leg of her 3-nation tour. On arrival in Auckland, the President was received by Todd McClay, Minister of Agriculture, Trade and Forestry, Neeta Bhushan, the High Commissioner of India to New Zealand, among others. The President will be travelling to Wellington on Thursday, where she will be meeting the Governor-General of New Zealand, Dame Cindy Kiro, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters. She'll also be addressing New Zealand International Education Conference on Thursday at Wellington. She will then take part in a community reception in Auckland on Friday before leaving for Timor-Leste. Now, the latest on a helicopter crash in Nuwakot in neighbouring Nepal. An Air Dynasty helicopter crashed on Wednesday afternoon near Shivachor in the Shivpuri Rural Municipality 7 of Nuwakot, resulting in the death of all 5 people on board. The government of Nepal has formed a 3-member panel to investigate the Air Dynasty chopper crash that took place. The committee has been given 30 days to investigate the crash and submit a report to the government. Now let's get you some other quick updates. Thailand's Constitutional Court on Wednesday ordered the dissolution of the anti-establishment opposition party Move Forward, ruling its campaign to amend a law that protects the monarchy from criticism. The decision comes 6 months after the same court ordered Move Forward to drop its plan to reform a law on royal insults. 2 women from the Italian branch of the organization People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, that's PETA, on Wednesday interrupted the weekly audience presided over by Pope Francis in Vatican City. The protesters disrupted the service by shouting and holding up banners against bullfighting. California's 4th largest wildfire on record, the Park Fire has torched 414,000 acres as of Tuesday morning and was 34% contained. A time lapse of the fire vortex of the Park Fire showed the fire intensifying as smoke continued to envelop the sky. On the 7th of August, India celebrates National Handloom Day, a day dedicated to honouring the handloom weavers of the country and their contributions to the rich tapestry of Indian culture and economy. This day not only celebrates the vibrant heritage of Indian textiles, but also aims to promote and support the weavers and artisans who've kept these traditions alive for generations. Let's now bring you some other news as well from the country. India's National Board of Examinations in Medical Sciences has registered a police complaint against fraudsters who are claiming to provide NEET PG 2024 questions for the upcoming NEET PG 2024 examination in exchange for money. Media reports claiming potential leakage of NEET PG 2024 examination papers are false and misleading. In a move to check poaching and encroaching attempts, the Chief Minister of the Northeast Indian state of Assam, Dr. Hemant Biswa Sarma, has handed over 20 inflatable rubber boats with outboard motors to the Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve guards. The 28th Delhi Book Fair has been inaugurated at Pragati Maidan in the national capital on Wednesday. This year's theme for the book fair is Global Impact of Indian Books. More than 4,000 books in 24 Indian languages are being displayed at the fair. The event runs on till the 11th of this month. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for all those on the go, you can get all the latest news from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.